All right, and there's one more style of motion that you guys need to know about. So there's contrary, oblique. This is similar motion. And then the other is called parallel motion. So parallel motion just means that if you're moving from like a major third to a major third. All right, they're staying the same, like that. So they don't actually move. This is parallel motion. All right, so those are the different types of motions. We can add this. So imperfect to perfect. You can do contrary, oblique, similar, basically any of the options, or parallel. Okay. Now if you're going from a perfect to an imperfect, so perfect to perfect right here. You can do similar, contrary, or oblique. Sim, contrary, or oblique. All right? But not parallel, obviously, because you're changing the actual interval. You're going from perfect to imperfect, therefore you have to change the notes. You cannot do parallel. It's just not possible. Let's see. Oh, sorry. If you're going from an imperfect consonant to a perfect consonant, you want only oblique or contrary again. Perfect to imperfect, similar, contrary, oblique. And then if you're going from imperfect to imperfect, anything goes. All okay. All right. Let's see. So avoid extended passages in parallel motion. So for this, I'm just going to show you. So you don't want to have just all of your intervals be all sixes all the way across or all threes all the way across. You need some variety. So no more than 3 of the same interval together. All right? So 8.26. So this is actually the rules for writing second species counterpoint. Let's see. So these are the first counterpoint rules. First species. Second species gets a little more complicated. A couple more rules. Now we're on second species counterpoint. So, first rule, the first note always has to be perfect unison, perfect fifth, perfect octave. All right, just like with first species counterpoint. In rule number 2, the second half note in the next to last measure, so the measure right before the last measure, that last half note that's leading to the to the tonic, to the final note, has to be a leading tone, all right? And you're going to see sharps stuck right in. So lots of times it'll be, if you're in Dorian mode, the C sharp gets added in, even though you haven't had a C sharp for the entire rest of the piece, just to get that leading tone in there. Also, third rule, the first half note in each measure must be consonant, all right? So the first half note in every measure has got to be either a major third, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, minor sixth, perfect octave, major 10th, or minor 10th. So it has to be one of those consonant intervals that was okayed for the first species counterpoint. Now, that said, the second half note in each measure may be consonant, or it can be a dissonant as long as it's a passing tone, all right? And a dissonant includes major second, minor second, augmented fourth, diminished fifth, major seventh, minor seventh, and major ninth, minor ninth. All right, because we are allowed to go up to a tessitura of a 10th, although ideally not more than an octave. So it is okay. Allowable dissonances are, if you look in here, perfect fourth, also considered a dissonance. Is that? Oh my gosh, I totally missed it. Okay, 8.19, the first, the allowable perfect consonances are major third, minor third, perfect fifth. So perfect fourth is not on this list. I am so sorry, you guys. It is not considered a consonant. It's considered a dissonant. Perfect fourth, no. So dissonant passing tones. So dissonants are major second, minor second, augmented fourth, so any tritone or diminished fifth, tritone, perfect fourth, major seventh, minor seventh, major 9, minor 9. All right? Let's see. So that's what's allowed, but it has to be in the form of a passing tone, not in the form of something else, like a leap or something like that. Let's see. So there can be no leaps to or from a dissonance, all right? Only if it's in a passing tone. So it's stepwise motion. So you also want to avoid parallel fifths. And this is a big one. For all species counterpoint, there can be no parallel fifths, all right? Or parallel octaves. So you can't have, let's see, something like this. So you can't do P5, P5, P5. Verboten, no parallel fifths, all right? So that goes for first species counterpoint. It also goes for second species counterpoint. So you could have this. They pop up out of nowhere. Same with octaves. They get the same treatment. So you cannot have something like, let's see, D. Something like this, all right? So here, between D and A, we have a fifth, right? So here it's a sixth to a perfect fifth. That's acceptable. Here, we have a perfect fifth to a major sixth, all right? So this interval right here, totally unacceptable, all right? So you cannot have parallel fifths. Same thing if it were octaves. So you have to avoid that. So 5, no parallel fifths or octaves. Okay? What else am I missing? Also, what you want to avoid is if we had something like this. Now here we've got our major sixth, and here's our parallel fifth. But even though there's an intervening note in the middle, you're still going to hear these two right there as parallel fifths because they're still part of the same beat. So you've got to avoid that as well. You've got to have at least two notes in between any sort of parallel fifth or octave. All right, so just avoid parallel fifths like the plague. Let's see. You are also allowed to use a unison on the second half of the beat in species counterpoint, but never ever on the first beat. And that goes except for, oh yeah, so in 8.27 you'll see they've got it actually mapped out for you right here. So if you're going to use a perfect unison, even on as part of the first part of the counterpoint, you need to have a half note rest, and then you can start because that's the second beat. If you want to start on the downbeat, it's got to be P5. If you want to have a P8, it's got to start second half of the downbeat, all right? Just keep that in mind. Counterpoint below, you can start a P8 right on the downbeat, all right? So keep that in mind. Just follow these. Don't stray from them. Let's see. That. So rule number 6, it's best to approach and depart from leaps greater than the third in contrary motion. So use contrary motion on leaps. Bigger. So a third, it's still okay to use similar or oblique motion, but if you've got anything more than a third, like a fourth or fifth, sixth, something like that, then use contrary motion. All right. Let's see. So no repeated notes, no tied notes, no sequences, and no repeated melodic figures, so all of those. So no, so even this is wrong. You can't actually technically do that because that's a repeated note, right? Or a tied note. I was just trying to give a good example. So you could do maybe leap up to the C or something, call it a third. Nope, yeah, octave. Okay? So something like that. That's a no-no. To repeat the note. So no repeated notes. Ties. Sequences. Or repeated melodic figures, which also falls under repeats, but repeated figures and sequences. Okay? So you can see all of them here in 8.33. As you can see, you've got your repeated note, so the same note, tied note, which is essentially just a repeated note but not moving, sequence, or a repeated figure. So none of that is acceptable. Yeah, so and that's actually it